Welcome back to another episode of Dentside Depot. Today we are going to talk trucks, and more trucks, specifically the difference between Ranger, Ranger XLT, Ranger Lariat, and Custom, what the differences are, what the price differences are, and the equipment that you would get for each. So stay tuned. I think this is going to be a fun episode. Alright, so we're going to start with Custom first, as that is the base model truck. And our candidate here today for discussing this is my 79 F100 in light blue. Now, one thing that you will notice on this truck is it does have the Explorer package on it, which you could get on the Custom truck obviously, but you could also get it on Ranger and Ranger XLT as well. So on the outside of the truck, the difference that you would see is that a Custom would have no trim on it. All right, and you can see there is no trim on this particular truck. You would get the base model wheels, you would get the base tailgate with no applique on it whatsoever, no trim of any kind, and typically the front grille would be bare without chrome, and that would be pretty much it for the outside. You would have no trim whatsoever, although trim could be added, which we will talk about next with Ranger. But let's go inside and take a look at what the inside of the truck looks like. Now, this truck is an absolute bare bones Custom. Besides the Explorer trim, it essentially has no options. This is the seat that you would typically see with a Custom truck, although this one is technically not the right pattern. It would typically just be a plain vinyl seat or a plain cloth seat of some kind. This one is not correct for this truck. I'm going to be changing it later on. On the dash with the Custom, your trim on the dash would not have any wood grain. On the right hand side of the dash, you would not have the extra trim piece, but this would still actually be wood grain in 1979. Your emblem would say Custom, and that would essentially be it. The dash pad was the same for every single style of truck. Every trim option that you get, you would just have the color keyed dash pad, and that'd be it. The panel for the roof would be hard cardboard with a Custom truck, and no, you could not get a sunroof with these trucks. That is a day 2 option for these particular trucks. And the sun visors would be the same for every single trim, although you could get one with a visor in it, a vanity mirror I should say. And then that brings us to the door panels. For a Custom truck, the door panels would be plain Jane. There would be nothing on them. These panels are obviously not correct on this truck. They're going to be changed at some point, but it would be one single color with no trim in it whatsoever for Custom. Also with Custom, you would have plain Jane seat belts. Now this one has upgraded seat belts in it because it's an Explorer, but besides that, you would have the regular colored seat belts. You would have a rubber floor mat, and that would essentially be it. You would have a base steering wheel, and you would not have a radio unless you ordered one, and you would have base HVAC modules as well. For Ranger, you would be one step up from the regular Custom base trim. Now this truck that we're looking at here is actually a Custom, as you can see, but the outside is actually optioned like a Ranger, because again, you could upgrade a Custom to have more trim on it, and this truck actually has the Ranger trim, being just the top trim piece going all the way down through the end of the bed. The front grille would again be most likely a base grille unless you ordered a bright chrome one, and you would probably have the blacked out inner headlights. You would probably also have a plain Jane bumper unless you ordered one special with the Ranger package. Now in the back, there is a big difference. You can see this has the Custom back where there's no trim here and there's no applique on the tailgate, but that's what it would look like. Now looking at the dash for this truck, although this is a Custom, the trim is the same as a Ranger. You would have a black keyed dash with no wood grain, you'd have no secondary trim piece, and you would have the wood grain for the dash console door, the glove box door, and then instead of it saying Custom on the emblem, it would just say Ranger. And that is what a Ranger door panel would look like. The Ranger non-XLT, non-Lariat door panel would just have that chrome insert, and that's all you would see. Now, let's figure out here what the price difference is for a Ranger compared to a regular Custom. So for a regular cab truck, the additional price would be $294 for that option. For Super Cab, it would be $343.60. and for crew cab it was not available. Ranger was only available on regular cab and super cab only. So not an expensive option, but also it really didn't add that much compared to the custom truck. So now we're gonna head on off to looking at a Ranger XLT. All right, and we are looking at a 79 crew cab here that does have the Ranger XLT option. I actually have two of them right here next to me. Now with the XLT option, what you could get, but not absolutely would get, would be the top and the bottom trim going all the way down to the side of the cab, all the way through the bed, etc. Obviously you would get the XLT trim emblem, and you would also get the tailgate applique that we talked about with Ranger. Now, what do the seats look like? It would be some sort of vinyl or cloth weave. It might have the little emblems going down the middle. I'm going to cut here in a second. I'm going to show you that particular seat. But a big difference with the XLT was that you would get these special inserts for the door panels, and you can see it is additional wood trim. So now you would have the wood trim on the door panel to match the wood trim that would be in the dash area. For crew cabs, another feature that you got would be these little ashtrays in the back, only available on crew cab, but a cool little option that you would get in addition for a Ranger XLT. So let's go look at a different style Ranger XLT seat. Okay, and here we are. We have the Ranger XLT seat. What would be most common, most likely, especially for, this is a super cab truck, you can see there's the little emblem right here, and this particular one is cloth. But again, I have seen them vary in what style they are, but typically this is going to be what your XLT seat looks like. So now let's move on to what the XLT package actually cost. The XLT package would also include a wood grain insert on the steering wheel, so it would have the nicer horn button, and you would also have cut pile carpet. Depending on the cab size, it would also be matched to the color of the truck. So let's see what the Ranger XLT package actually costs here. All right, Ranger XLT for a regular cab would be $439. For a crew cab, it'd be $543, and for a super cab, it'd be $510. And obviously for crew cab, more expensive because they'd have to trim out the rear doors in addition to the fronts, whereas the super cabs, that would not occur. And that is it for crew cabs. You cannot get a higher trim than that. So now let's move on to looking at the Lariat trucks. And that brings us to the top model, being the Ranger XLT Lariat. Now it is Ranger XLT Lariat because it combines all the lower option trim packages and ups it all the way to the Lariat. Standard on the Lariat is you would have the top and bottom trim, and then you would decide whether you wanted to delete the two-tone or leave the two-tone in the color of your choice. The badging would have a Lariat emblem underneath the Ranger emblem on the outside. Mirrors are your choice. You got whatever you wanted to get on your particular package. The tailgate was significantly different on these trucks compared to the Ranger and Ranger XLT, and custom, of course. You would have the Ranger applique that you would also get on the XLT right here, but then you would add a secondary trim piece on top that was more additional chrome, and then that's what the taillight chrome would look like. Now let's go into the interior and see what the interior would look like in comparison. Okay, the dash was very similar to a Ranger XLT. You would get the wood grain horn button, you would get the wood grain on the left, the wood grain on the right, the same as all the other ones, except in this case you would get the Lariat emblem instead of a Ranger XLT emblem, indicating that you had the top model. In addition, you would get a Lariat headliner, and that Lariat headliner would have the chrome trim, and I forgot to mention this, but the XLT also got the chrome trim as well, just with the cardboard headliner piece. Okay, now we're going to look at the seats. The seat for the Ranger XLT Lariat was unique. Your seat would have vinyl bolsters with a white middle lining and then green cloth on the inside, and it was a very, very fancy seat in comparison to the other seats. In addition to that, you would get color-keyed seat belts that would match the trim color of the inside of the truck. in this case being green. Okay, now you would not be able to get those colored seatbelts on Super Cab or Crew Cab. That particular part of the option would be for regular cabs only. Now the last part of this is we need to look at the door panels. The door panels were the same as a custom door panel, except they would add one thing. They would add the Lariat insert, which was very fancy for 1979. And you can see it would be wood grain inside the trim, and then there'd be the nice white vinyl bolster. And then for this truck being green, this was green on the inside, but that could be black, silver, red, tan, just depending on what color truck you had. And then most likely you would add in the matte pockets that were color keyed, either bungeed or flat. And that brings us over to the carpet. The carpet in the regular cab trucks would be color keyed to the interior color of the truck overall. On the seat you would add these chrome pieces. I believe that was on XLT as well. And then you would have carpet up against the kick panel on the inside, which is also very cool. Now, on a Lariat truck, it was possible to not have any other options. It was not a guarantee that you were going to have tilt wheel. It was not a guarantee that you were going to have any other convenience packages of any kind, or even a top level trim radio or air conditioning, whatever. This truck is a true Lariat, and it has none of those options. It does not have AC. It had a base radio. It has a non-tilt wheel. It does not have convenience lighting. It has the cigar lighter, but essentially that's all it got. There was nothing else that really made it special. And you can see that the visors are the same. So really, the Lariat package was essentially an appearance package. It did not provide extra equipment that made the truck any more functional. It was strictly just for looks. Now, with that being said, the price difference of a Lariat compared to the other trucks is actually pretty significant. So let's take a look here. So for Ranger Lariat on a regular cab truck, it would be $715. On a super cab truck, it would be $792.90, which, if I'm not mistaken, is the single most expensive option that you can get when you talk about really anything overall. I think that was the most expensive thing when you talk about regular options and trims and everything else, engines. That was the single most expensive one. The reason the super cab is more expensive is because they also had that Lariat headliner, and they also got the forward-facing rear seat when you had the Lariat, which was $200 on its own, and that was added into the package. But the seat belts were not color keyed in the super cab. So that's really about it. You can see now the differences in price and everything else for all four different levels of truck. I will add into that you could get freewheeling, which is an additional cost, but made the truck have more appearance to it. And then also we saw my Explorer truck, which added more appearance to it. And there's a lot of things you could change, and things were different from year to year. So this is not definitely absolute in some cases, but in most cases this is generally what it looked like and how it came out of the factory. If you enjoyed this content, you enjoyed this episode, please like and subscribe, and we'll see you in the next episode.